FlyQuest just gets it, that would feel great, but they got to get through C9 again first. Varus, the final ban in the first half of the draft.
I'm curious to see what they're going to prioritize in the AD carry pool now that we're playing on the new patch, and Caitlyn was nerfed, still was banned, of course. Xayah has been nerfed, Varus is banned away. Maybe something like Zeri, Aphelios is going to start being prioritized here by FlyQuest.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, Zeri has been so high pro for both these teams. Zven actually did play a support Annie game the other day. I think it was last week, and I think it was actually with a Zeri as well. So it is possible that we could see that brought out from either side. With Viband out, that's always kind of the jungle lance that we see a lot in the LCS to the Zeri. Get some of that point-and-click lockdown. So don't mind it as a takeaway, especially because we did just see the Annie-Zeri pairing for Cloud9 last week.
Lulu locked in next to that Zeri for FlyQuest. They're immediately prioritizing that bottom lane duo. Prince, the desk talked about it a little bit, talking about how 2 out of 3 of his past 3 games have not been super impressive, but before that, he was just putting on a clinic for the whole league. Zeri's one of those champions that can absolutely 1v5 or 2v5 with a pocket Lulu, but that's the kind of thing that I think FlyQuest can play around, but they got to be ready for whatever C9 might be trying to do to apply that pressure there to the bottom lane.
They are!
Oh, baby, it's Draven for Berserker.
And that's his first game on it this split. I know he's brought it out in the past in LCS. He's one of those guys who's comfortable to play Draven. We don't have a lot of Draven players in the league, but this is one of these champions that you can really punish some of these more greedy scaling matchups in. You can look to get hyper aggressive. And if they go Wukong here, maybe they're just going to send Annie bot, have the potential gank set up there, you know, bring Ignite, call down your jungler, and say, even if Spica is going to show up, we're going to win this 3v3.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to take the jungle pick here. Make sure they get a prior pick, because otherwise FlyQuest could take their choice, ban 2. And with Draven, like whether it's Annie, Nautilus, Leona, it doesn't really matter. They just need one of the all-in supports and they're more than happy.
FlyQuest has had Spica on a lot of tank duty, a lot of demonic embrace champions earlier on, but he's defaulted back into the more standard pool after that was nerfed. And it looks like this time they're going to put him back on Sejuani. So very standard stuff here for FlyQuest with a strong front line, supportive enchanter next to a hyper-scaling AD carry. C9, full aggro in the first half. Neither side has drafted a solo laner yet, as long as that is Annie support. Again, it still could flex. We'll see what they want to do here in the second half as FlyQuest bans LeBlanc first.
Yeah, I'm so interested to see where the teams are going to go in the second half of the draft, because, I mean, first 3 for FlyQuest is like full scaling, right? It's all about those later stages. I do think that, you know, C9 is going to be wanting to play a lot more aggressive. And ever since EMENES has come in, he has been really prioritizing aggressive mid lane picks. There is theoretically a chance that this could be a mid Annie as well, that could be flex around, but EMENES has been really excelling on a lot of these aggressive picks. We've seen him play the LeBlanc, the Yone, Tryndamere mid, had a great Syndra game as well, and has really been pushing the pace.
Yeah, fortunately enough now, for FlyQuest, they can give the last pick to their mid lane and make sure he gets a comfortable matchup. And I think at this point, FlyQuest just needs something that's strong in the early game, something that can get them to the late game. Because now, like you said, the scaling is amazing, but versus, you know, Draven, Annie, and Wukong, early game can get a little scary.
And we've seen team compositions before that try to go too hard into the scaling, and it's just, okay, well, we're dead by 20 minutes. How are we ever supposed to scale at this point? So FlyQuest bans out Nautilus as their last ban in the draft. They're saying, okay, there's still a distinct possibility that Annie could be not in support. We want to cover those different possibilities here. Jax, the final ban for C9, expecting FlyQuest to probably go for this top lane pick first, I would think. See what they want to lock in here.
Something along this lines that could move around the map, you know, would make some sense. If it is just impact blind and he goes Ornn, I feel like you're like pretty much fully locked in. Just you're going late, right? Like you're just praying to not lose. Ksante is a little bit more active in the early stages, I think, compared to the Ornn, but still not what I would consider like an early game kind of dominant champion.
Right.
So it's just going to be interesting to think about like what kind of pairings, you know, they could even look for. You could do something like Sejuani, Aurelia mid, try to have some early power. You know, what kind of pairings are you looking for if you're playing Sejuani on this draft as Spica that you would want your mid laner to play to give you some sort of early game agency?
Well, I think that's the interesting part, right? That there's so many different directions they can go, and I think it's just mostly going to be about what Vicla, you know, is most comfortable on, really.
Yeah.
One thing worth noting is that they don't have much AP damage, so, you know, anything with AP could make sense just to get the damage split going, but, you know, even Irelia is still going to be a good
He's played a lot of Sylas as well, you know, if you do want some sort of a melee pairing there, but gives a lot of value to Merchants, I guess, you know, for mid-jungle. But I mean, it's just hard to think about like what early game pick here, you know, gives FlyQuest some agency in the early stages, but also still fits the composition because, as you say, they kind of do need some MR. It becomes there's some magic damage. It becomes a bit less important because there's no true tank on the other side. So maybe now you can pick a bit more for lane.
And I think now, especially with, you know, C9 blind picking Orianna, like they can go for anything. It's not like it's a lane bully. It's you can pick whatever and be fine with it.
All right, FlyQuest, they'll lock in the Akali. So Akali versus Orianna is our mid-lane matchup here in this one. The Annie Draven lane versus the Zeri Lulu. I feel like what you guys have been talking about the most is how FlyQuest has so much scaling compared to C9. So I guess the question I want to ask is, if you're C9, obviously you've got to be on the attack. Where are we attacking? Is it just try to beat up on Prince again? What's the strategy here?
I think they have to play for the Draven. Fiora, you know, sure, she's going to be happy getting some attention, but she's going to outscale Ksante over time and take over side lane. Orianna should be safe farming in mid lane versus Akali, but Draven Annie needs to be ahead to be useful in this game. If they can get that lane rolling, Zeri Lulu are not going to be able to lane, so that would be the focus point for me for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's all about getting the
All right, let's rock and roll. Cloud9 versus FlyQuest rematch to kick off Super Week and the final week of regular play here in Spring Split. Captain Flowers and Azael here casting with Broxah in the TriCast for our first game of the week. And we have the Draven Annie. Draven with the cleanse here. Berserker respecting the fact that he does not want to get one shot locked up in any sort of CC if Spica comes down there to gank, if he gets polymorph, something like that. But man, I'm really excited to watch this bottom lane.
Yeah, same. I think, you know, both junglers should be pathing towards bot lane here, realistically. For FlyQuest, it's going to be about the defense, just making sure nothing goes wrong. For C9, they want to kill people.
I'm also really interested to see, you know, normally you wouldn't talk about the Orianna because it's kind of more of a boring lane, but EMENES, his first game that he debuted on was the Victor. That was his worst performance by far. And since then, he hasn't really been on these kind of scaling control mages at all. So it'll be interesting to see how he's going to perform in a very different role for the team, because largely it has been about playing through mid for Blaber and EMENES. They've been enabling him, allowing him to play really hyper aggressive. In this matchup, you know, you're talking about it should just be a farm lane. You want to play towards bot. So can EMENES really stay safe, farm it out, and play just a kind of quiet, controlled game where he can then have a lot of value in those later stages?
Well, we saw EMENES on the Syndra last week, and it went just fine. It's not like he was the main reason they won the game or anything, but he certainly had a better game than he did on the Victor way back at the start of the split. One thing I also want to point out here, because we're talking about both junglers needing to pay attention to the bottom lane, remember that last week in FlyQuest's upset loss against Team Liquid, it was Pyosik outplaying Spica in the jungle. Spica was trying to cover Pyosik, make up for where those ganks were going to be, but Pyosik got bottom first. He was making things happen more often, and so I want to see if Blaber can navigate the game the same way. I want to see if he can outpath Spica, outbrain Spica, and get that Cloud9 bot lane rolling.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to track. I mean, I think Blaber has been having, you know, very good split with the team, and has had kind of, you know, one of those really luxury situations that you love to have as a jungler, Broxah, where, you know, for Cloud9, he really can in most games play through any lane, because Cloud9 does have strong laners across the board, and that's a luxury that not every jungler in the league has.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you could say, in some ways, Blaber is playing on easy mode, right? Because all his laners are so incredibly strong. But at the same time, he's been making a lot of smart choices, and the one thing that's so impressive about Blaber that he's always been known for has been his aggression, his ability to, you know, use the pressure his laners are providing him to take over the game. And that's something I really want to see him do here, because with the Wukong, he's going to be strong in the early skirmishes. He has a good matchup versus the Sejuani.
Well, that Sejuani's just going to move through, clearing the camps for now. You can see Blaber doing the same thing.
I can
on the
hear one of the
opposite side of the map
producers. It's hard
down
to
here.
focus.
So we've got to see what is going on top side. Fudge going to go ahead, just crash that one in. Impact trying to clear things out. Shouldn't have too much difficulty with it. Fudge also going to drop the ward there. Keep an eye on those Krugs. They know that Blaber was just clearing his own. So since Blaber is clearing his own camps, that means that you can also expect your opponent in Spica to try to be doing the same thing. As EMENES steps forward, looking for Vicla, but Spica's ready to gank. He lands the W2. He chases him through the flash there with a stun. Vicla wants to go in. Blaber's ready to cover his first blood over to C9.
Yeah, Blaber able to turn that one around.
But I can keep hearing producers while I'm talking.
able to get bailed out there in the last second. Blaber coming in, saving his mid laner, getting that kill. Getting really, really close there in those final moments.
All right, C9 and FlyQuest. It was a close skirmish there at the very start. This is sort of the jungling that we were talking about, Blaber being able to get involved, to take things over, but it was Spica who got here first.
Yeah, this was actually looking really, really dicey for EMENES. You know, pushing a little bit too far forward there. Does get Q flashed on by Spica, but Vicla doesn't have any ability to actually gap close and get in on top of him. By the time he actually flashes forward, Blaber has arrived, and that is going to be so frustrating for Vicla, because I think if he did actually get the passive auto off after that Q, he potentially could have finished him off there, gotten that kill, and that can really slowball a matchup. You know, like Akali into Orianna can start to look very, very different, but fortunately for him, commits the flash. Blaber is there to bail out his mid laner. That's a big swing in the game.
Topside, Impact's got that wave crash back into Fudge. Now, you can see these guys. It's a pretty, like, uneventful lane in the top half of the map right now. Action in mid was the only PvP we've really gotten a whole lot of so far. Quick reminder, tomorrow is Fairy Court Day here at the LCS, so if you're here in Los Angeles, stop by for that. It ought to be a hell of a fun time. We've got a 900 gold lead for the side of Cloud9 over FlyQuest, and Blaber, with the advantage he's got from First Blood, is not afraid to step up into enemy territory, scan around, look for Spica, try to keep eyes on him, and stop him from getting his teams back into the game.
And when playing Wukong, it's really about getting to Divine Sunderer as fast as possible, because once you finish that first mythic item, no one can really fight you. So Blaber is off to a really good start here, obviously looking to get the Drake for his team. It's a perfect time to do the Dragon now, because afterwards they can start focusing on the Herald and just take the objectives one after another.
Yeah, I always love seeing teams, if they can go for a Drake early, go for it before the Herald spawns, then you don't have to handshake and trade the objective, right? You can fight for it if you want to, or prioritize just getting extra pressure on the other side of the map if you don't. Spica walking mid, as EMENES has this wave shoved up to the turret, just applying a little bit of extra pressure so that his own mid laner can farm without the extra harass. Both junglers hanging around here, both mid laners level 6, both ultis are ready to go. Remember that there's no flash for EMENES or Vicla right now, but that situation does favor Vicla due to his champion's mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see if they can get any sort of a punish around there. And you can see Spica has been hovering mid for so long, clearly a little bit nervous about his flashless Akali, you know, trying to make something happen around there. Doesn't have any camps up to farm right now anyway, so just spending a lot of time here around Vicla, trying to find an angle to really get something done. It does feel like FlyQuest are kind of like hard committing almost to trying to get Vicla, you know, ahead in this matchup.
Having Vicla ahead could mean a very different mid-game for FlyQuest and C9 both. Akali from behind, she's not as scary. Akali from ahead feels like a cheat code, just taking over the game, being able to one-shot your carries wherever they are. Our junglers are just about to hit level 6. Once they hit those points, they both have very powerful ultimates for both skirmishes and ganks. Do you still just want to see him take a trip down bot, Broxah, or change the aggro up somewhere else?
I think now, because Rift Herald is spawning in 45 seconds, that becomes the main focus for both teams. So what I want to see from C9 is using their strong bot lane to secure Herald, and then afterwards focus bot lane again to unleash Draven, just getting a lot of plates under the turret. What we see right now from Zven is exactly what we want, really. He bases with Annie, knowing Herald is up in 30 seconds. Now he can decide what he wants to do. Probably going to move out towards the mid lane, so he can help Blaber taking Herald here in 20 seconds.
I mean, Berserker has been stacking incredibly fast. We're 8 minutes into the game. He's at 218 stacks on the Draven. It feels like a lot already.
Those only matter if they get converted into money.
Yeah.
If you don't convert them into money, it's just a fancy little icon above your health bar.
It's the intimidation factor. I don't know about you, but when the enemy Draven has a lot of stacks, I start sweating a little bit.
All right, we do have attention on this Rift Herald immediately from the side of C9. Zven clearing out some of the vision of their opponents as Spica steps up to contest the Herald. Eyla and Vicla hovering shortly behind him, but there's still a decent amount of distance between the FlyQuest players. Now they move in. They've got more men here sooner. They went ahead and brought Prince over faster. FlyQuest are going to take over the river. Cloud9's going to be forced off. Blaber wants to go in and try to steal it. He doesn't get it. I like the attempt, though. It does cost him his flash, and FlyQuest take the Herald.
Yeah, they are going to be able to get that Herald. Berserker ended up basing, so he didn't even take a plate bot. You know, he gets a little bit more tempo on the buy, but it kind of feels like he should have just stayed bot when they saw Prince show up over at the Herald and at least just take one plate or something.
I actually think it's really unacceptable that FlyQuest ends up getting the Herald here, because with C9, with their strong, bot lane duo, with Wukong having a lead already, this Herald is theirs, and they need it to snowball. Because in FlyQuest's side, they're scaling pretty much everywhere. You cannot give them a chance to buy time.
Well, right now, Fudge is trying to buy time for Blaber to get in and help him out. Impact tries to go unstoppable, but Blaber swoops in, and again, it's Blaber ganking second and coming out on top. Spica tries to fight back here a little bit, gets the stun, gets away, but C9 win another solo lane and jungle 2v2.
And that parry from Fudge was huge. He parried the Sejuani ultimate, which actually stunned up the Ksante as well. So perfectly timed there on the parry, gets him space from the Ksante, allows Blaber the time to come in, finish off that kill, and get even further ahead. He probably has his mythic completion gold, or just about here. He's just base, so yeah, only needs a couple hundred more gold, and he's gonna have his mythic here. We're only 10 minutes in.
Vicla nearly getting the solo kill on EMENES, but such low health left on this Akali, he couldn't go under the turret to finish him off. So Vicla, unfortunately, not going to get anything back on the board for FlyQuest. Let's take another look at this play that Fly started.
I think this play is, looking really interesting here, because we see FlyQuest with the Ksante, the Sejuani setting up an early play on Fudge, but really impressive parry onto the Ksante. Blaber comes in for the kill, and now, the C9 duo shows why they're so good at playing around the top lane. Like, these skirmishes, they're just on point.
And not only did the parry block the Sejuani ulti at the very end of the animation, he also blocked the stun from the E at the start. Using one parry, he blocked both hard CC abilities from Sejuani. That timing could not have been better from Fudge. And that's exactly the kind of performance that can get you the edge in these fights. Because I think if either one of those hits and he gets CC'd, they should be able to kill him in time before he can proc the ulti, before he can get to heal, and at least make it a 1-for-1. But right now, C9's 2-0. They're up over 1,000 gold. They got the first Drake, and the second one's going to spawn here in about 10 seconds. This is the next door neighbor to that Draven who's been stacking this whole time, boys. I feel like this is prime adoration time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the execute keeps going up and up on this ulti, so it becomes so much easier to actually get those cash-ins. As long as you are staying safe, as long as you have summoners to actually not die in the initial engage, you have a really good chance with Wukong this fed to chunk someone low, finish them off potentially with that Draven ult. And now Blaber has spotted Vicla, who's just gonna have to immediately retreat.
I think if I'm Blaber here, I'm just gonna tell my team, guys, we cannot lose a fight anymore. Like, I am Divine Thunder Wukong. I am a raid boss at this point, and you just need to come and play around me. FlyQuest, obviously, they don't want to give up anything for free.
No, they
contest.
don't. Blaber immediately tanking the damage from Sejuani, but turning it around, and they kill off Eyla first. Berserker's keeping Prince away, and Spica is going to be chopped to pieces. EMENES grabs the kill. C9 gets 4. Holy moly, it is nothing left for FlyQuest. They are being embarrassed on the Rift.
Look at the gold lead, 4.5K. The cash in there, 937 gold for Draven off of that fight. That is massive just from that passive gold, plus the kill gold he got for himself. So he's sitting on almost 3K now as he goes to base here on the Draven. So that is terrifying.
And I think this is one of those cases where when you're FlyQuest, you cannot, just go in and force these fights. You need to look at the enemy composition and realize they're power spiking right now. Draven is monstrous, even though he didn't get the cash in yet. Wukong is unleashed. And, it's not even close. Like, just take a step back. It's okay. You don't have to rush anything.
And then this happened the entire time. This was a separate fight. Fudge finding the ulti onto Impact, hitting the vitals he needs to hit. Impact wanted to use the all-out to get back to the safety of his turret, but it wasn't safe enough. The vital spawns where Fudge can hit it, and so he gets the solo kill across the map. This is a 5,000 gold lead at 13 minutes, my friends. We said that C9 needed to snowball. They needed to build advantages against the scaling that FlyQuest drafted. 5K at 13 minutes is quite elite.
I mean, the gold gap in all of the carry roles right now is enormous, right? It's like 1,500 mid, it's 1,200 bot, it's a good 1,200 or so top. It is just crazy how far ahead they are. Blaber as well is way out ahead. And I gotta say, when you're playing a tank in a Fiora and you die to the Fiora early, it is so depressing because it's not getting better, right? Like, it just gets worse. The true damage becomes more and more difficult to deal with. So Impact's gonna be in a world of hurt.
It's a really difficult position, being in FlyQuest's shoes right now, because you have no tools to do anything.
Right.
You cannot force fights, you cannot do a thing. You just call, guys, we're playing safe, we're turtling, we need to set up some defensive vision, wait for them to make mistakes, wait for our carries to get their power spikes, and that's all you can really do.
And the tough part about that is Cloud9 already has 2 dragons, right? Their 3rd dragon is going to be about 17 minutes in. They're going to take that, so they're on pace for a 22, 23-minute soul. And so that's not really giving FlyQuest any time to do anything, right? You can say, all right, all eggs in the Prince basket, please, Zeri, carry us. But like, by 22 minutes, you're still going to be a full item down on this Draven.
And I think the best part is that this split, C9 hasn't lost a single game while being ahead at 15 minutes. So the odds are definitely not in FlyQuest's favor right now. The pressure is on for real. And who knows, maybe they're going to be the first team to do it.
FlyQuest has to look at some more creative stats. You have to look at the Fudge Fiora stats. He's 2-8 all time.
Okay.
So you gotta depend on the Fiora throw. What? It's funny because I feel like he's actually been really good individually on it, but he doesn't seem to ever get any wins.
Berserker just fought off Prince and Eyla 1v2, took Prince down to 1/3 HP, and then as Spica came in, his only job was to escort Prince to safety. This Draven is frightening. EMENES is just going to take the turret solo here in mid. That is the first turret of the game. Bonus money goes over to C9. 6,000 gold ahead of FlyQuest, who only just now are completing the mythic item on their mid laner. They still do not have a fully completed item on Ksante because Impact has had to stop off for this garage sale of different things with a Sheen, with the Thornmail, with this Bramble Vest, excuse me, as Fudge just continues dominating the 1v1. EMENES is coming up now. I think they just want to dive the Ksante, get Impact out of here, and keep this game snowballing. EMENES and Fudge, let's see how they want to go about doing it. The Ghost coming out from Impact immediately. Spica comes in, tries to find the counter gank, but they're going to use EMENES' flash to dodge away from that Glacial Prison, and now Fudge has free firing time on the little bit of health left on the turret.
And you know that Cloud9 feels comically ahead because they didn't even call their jungler up front. They're doing the Herald at the same time as they're setting up a dive on top. They can kind of just do everything at once because they are this strong.
And FlyQuest is having a bit of a hard time responding because there, Eyla was sitting all the way down bot lane with his Akali while Prince and Zeri was roaming towards the top lane. And, you know, this anti-synergy definitely can't exist in a game like this one because then we're just slowly going to see C9 taking over, getting these turrets for free. You always have to try to be one step ahead when you're playing from behind. Easier said than done, of course, because C9 can do whatever they want, really. But now, FlyQuest knows Dragon is spawning in a moment. If I was them, I probably would give this one up because realistically speaking, they're not going to win it. They should instead try to get something on the other side of the map, which is why we're seeing Impact push top lane.
I think especially with turret bounties up, you hope you can at least get some gold back. You know, Berserker just stepping forward here into the Zeri completely unafraid, but you know, their Akali did grab tier 1 bot, so they got that objective bounty. EMENES looking like he's going to try to hold top, but he does have no flash, so if multiple members come up here, there's the potential of a dive. But Cloud9 knows it, so they're just going to reinforce.
C9, man, 6,000 gold up this early. They're walking everybody top, seeing if they might be able to make another play here. Remember, the tier 1 turret is already gone. EMENES has already used his shockwave, so they don't have that immediately ready. Spica dashes forward, regrouping with the rest of his team, but they do not want to do anything crazy versus C9, not unless it is an obvious advantage because they're so far behind.
But I mean, that's so rough. You TP Akali up the top side, you have 5 members top to try to get this. You're giving up the tier 1 bot, you're giving up your entire bot side jungle if Fiora is going to farm now, and the dragon. So, you know, they try to look for this scrap mass play, but because C9 is so far ahead and they don't overcommit, they have 3 people top holding off 5, and their other 2 are getting everything on bot side.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing FlyQuest starting to crumble a little bit here under the pressure. And they're eventually going to have to pull the trigger, take a risk, try to, you know, get a pick, get a team fight, because it seems like C9 is just never going to give them the number advantage they want.
Right, so let me ask you this then. We gave up the Drake on the side of FlyQuest, just like you're saying, hey, you're way too far behind, you can't fight it. But now Soul's on the table. Do you think for FlyQuest it's better to try to find something before then, or just get as much scaling as you can in the next 4.5 minutes and send it to the Soul?
I think at this point, look at AD carry items. If I am FlyQuest, I wouldn't be too happy about fighting at this point. I think you're at the very least gonna need your second item available on Zeri before you can even consider hopping into team fights. Maybe C9 is going to make a mistake. They can look for a pick on someone who overextends, but it's not really a habit we've seen much from them, so it's just overall really difficult. I'm getting flashbacks right now to a game we had on Fnatic many years ago where we were in the position FlyQuest is in right now, and the only call we had was, guys, Hope Broxah steals Baron. There's no hope anymore. Put defensive vision topside, try to steal the Baron. For what it's worth, we actually won that game.
Did you steal the Baron? Oh,
that's where the FlyQuest and Broxah meme started. I stole 2 of them. So maybe Spica can do the same. We'll see.
Well, right now, Spica's being chased away from his own red buff as C9 is looking to steal every possible resource they can. Blaber's smite comes in true as the teleport from FlyQuest. They're calling their moment. They want to go in now. Blaber's the target. They go over the wall there with Vicla, but Blaber's right back onto him. Blaber looking for the kill, and they've already killed the enemy mid laner. He's on a rampage, and Impact is next. Unstoppable? I don't think so. Fudge takes that kill and reposts some of the CC that would have come after him as he chases after Prince. A wild growth is going to allow the remaining FlyQuest players to disengage, but they went for the moment. They could not find it. I think it's curtains for FlyQuest.
Yeah, it's looking pretty much over at this point. Already an 8K gold lead. We're not even at 20 minutes here. C9 are just snowballing this game out of control, but you can't hate FlyQuest for taking those opportunities, because when you're this far down, if anything presents itself, you've pretty much got to try to take a swing, whether it is looking for a crazy Baron steal or going for a TP flank. It's got to be something. You never win this game if you play it out slow.
I think the only problem is that in this case, they went too far out of their own vision. They were fighting on C9's terms, and you're going to want to wait for them to move in deep, jump them, you know, on your own vision, so it's a little bit harder for them to respond. Obviously a good attempt. Did get 1 kill on the Akali, but still a long way to go for them, unfortunately.
Man, oh man, it's tough for FlyQuest. I mean, this slide just seems to be continuing for this squad that was so dominant in the first part of the split. They looked like nobody could touch him. Prince was a god that was just sent straight from the LCK to bless FlyQuest with his powers. But now, it seems like the coordination, the communication that made this team so scary early on has fallen apart a bit, and Cloud9 has just outperformed him everywhere here in this game. Berserker is just completely unafraid here. Yeah, Impact steps at him. It doesn't matter. He can just go right back to auto-attacking. He doesn't even have any lifesteal. He's not worried about it. Infinity Edge and Essence Reaver gives him so much power, using the Blood Rush and the spinning axes to proc the sheen of the Essence Reaver. C9 is going to take down their 6th turret of the game. Everything outside of the FlyQuest base has been crushed to the tune of a 10,000 gold lead.
Yeah, it's getting really, really tough here for FlyQuest. And you know, I think at this point, it's almost just trying to like stay positive for the rest of the games in the Super Week. You know, they still are in the fight for first seed here, but Cloud9, you know, really doing a number on him. And people were already starting to have a lot more questions about FlyQuest, and having confidence going into playoffs is so important, right? Yeah. It doesn't really matter if you were 8-0 or 9-0 earlier on in the split. If you go in on a low into playoffs, it can be very, very difficult.
For what it's worth, we have seen teams before come into playoffs from like a low starting point, dropping down to the loser bracket and then turning things around. And we have seen a lot of potential from FlyQuest. These are the 2 strongest early game teams we have in the league, which is why it's so disappointing to see it being so one-sided.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, C9 just ended up being 1 step ahead in draft this time around. Like, the pressure has been so immense that FlyQuest haven't been able to survive early game at all.
Absolutely, and I think it's something that is really, really impressive that C9 is able to show yet another look here, you know, in these weeks, to show a scaling slow kind of pace control mage, have EMENES on an Orianna, have a solid game from him, bringing out something like the Draven to really punish a Zeri Lulu on this patch is also something now that teams are really going to have to worry about, because we see so much blind Zeri Lulu in the LCS. So if you now go into a draft and you're saying, well, we can't actually do that without banning Draven, that's severely limiting your options in playoffs.
Yeah, and it was already difficult, you know, drafting versus C9 previously. It's just getting worse and worse for every week, pretty much. Now, we see the dragon spawning here in just a moment. FlyQuest have now realized they're unable to fight for it, so instead, they set up some vision around the Baron. This is basically the only move they have. Like, at this point, once C9 has gotten Soul, they are going to set their eyes on Baron. Because, I mean, technically, they're not going to need Baron to crack tier 3s at this point. But it's a nice bonus, and obviously FlyQuest, you know, they want to try to, at the very least, feed out to attempt a steal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you try to keep some sort of vision, so maybe you can get that miracle steal. I feel like when you're this far behind, the only thing you want to come out of your base for is a potential Baron steal and maybe an Elder. Because Elder is one of those things that can kind of sometimes erase all of the lead. You know, if you can get that Elder steal, it has so much power that it is a lot of copium to think that you'll get there and steal it.
Right.
But, you know, that can be kind of the hope that you can hold on to. Cloud9, though, getting back out on the map. And it's also a lot harder to actually maintain vision control on this particular rift because there is all these all the vision plants that you can actually wipe out wards with, it's a lot easier to actually find all those spots. You know, you don't just need to rely on sweepers and pinks. There's extra plants on this Chemtech Rift.
And the blast cone heats you like 3 miles, so you can get to places more quickly. You can take different angles, go over different walls. C9, again, pushing into enemy territory, looking to make sure FlyQuest cannot safely approach the Baron pit. Fudge and Zven go over the wall. If they can get Spica, they know it's not going to be a Baron contest anymore. It's just a Baron beatdown. Wild growth from the Lulu. Eyla doing what he can to make sure his jungler doesn't die there. Spica's hurt, but he's not entirely out of the picture just yet. Berserker goes in here from the flank. They're going to force FlyQuest back out. The flash from Eyla, the flash from Spica, both had to be used there to survive. The blast cone gets popped. So now if Spica wants to go in, it's got to be an Arctic assault over the wall, and it's a one-way trip.
It's just so easy to zone him out, though, right? You know, if you don't have flash, it feels so difficult to ever get in. They see him coming over, so Fiora can just go over the wall and start to actually push him away. They have the stun on Zven. They're just going to finish the Baron and look for the fight.
Yeah, they're going right in. They throw the Whirling Death over 3 or 4 players at FlyQuest. They find a little bit of damage. They're not going to force anything further right now, but they've got Baron for the next 3 minutes. Everybody's going back. They're all going to shop. I feel like this is the end of the game here. They got to be going for the throat in the next push.
And now C9 can really decide how they want to, you know, use that pressure. Traditionally, we're going to see a 1-4 push at this point in the game, but with Fiora, they could really go 1-3 run and just pressure everywhere, giving FlyQuest no chance to breathe. The only downside of that is, you know, FlyQuest can easier create a man advantage, and for that reason, we're seeing them set up the 1-4. Now their goal is going to be to help EMENES push out bot lane so he doesn't get caught. Once they have to push in both mid and bottom, FlyQuest are going to be in trouble.
Spica having to run away there. Oh, Zven, that was a little aggressive, buddy. I don't know if we're going to be able to
Without sending the message.
Yeah, he's just flashing the Pega Frog over and over again after that flash.
That felt personal for sure.
Yeah. Well, C9 is about to crack the base of FlyQuest. Berserker gets caught by the Arctic Prison, but it won't matter because he has the cleanse. He's ready to immediately respond. The tier 3 turrets fall in 2 lanes almost simultaneously as FlyQuest falls back and the inhibitors are under fire. Tier 3 turret in the top lane could be their next target if they want to go for it, but they may not even need to. They got 2 minions, 2 waves of minions crashing at the exact same time. C9 pushing towards Nexus turrets now. First one's about to melt. Vicla goes in, but the Akali is about to die before he even drops the smoke. Eyla gets popped, and now Prince is about to be next. He can fall back, but the turrets don't move, and that means they're both out of the picture. Spica tries to tank up here on the front line. The Cloud9's got way too much damage. Prince wants in, the Berserker wants him out. He goes on a killing spree and takes out Vicla. Prince flashes back into the fountain, but it's all he can do. Zven and Berserker keep him zoned away, and Berserker nearly getting him, but it won't matter. It's 12-2. It's a C9 win.
In a game between 2 teams that entered tied for first, we just saw one of the most one-sided stomps of the split. Cloud9 in only 26 minutes destroy FlyQuest and are really sending a message here going into playoffs.
I didn't know what to expect going into this one, to be honest, but I wasn't expecting this. This was wild. Wow.
And I think a lot of it came from the early leads that we got to see. It was Spica ganking first in both mid and top. Both solo lanes saw an appearance from Sejuani first, but they also both